Tulsi Gabbard's trying real fucking hard to never ever be allowed back into the Democratic Party, because as we seen last week, I think it was like Friday or something, I took a look at the Title IX provision bill that she was going to introduce, as well as the bill to break up all of the large tech institutes as well. Everything that the Democrats love and champion, she is trying to burn down on the way out. And we got two more bills here today, and you guys probably already know based on what I throw into the thumbnail. But first and foremost here, House Resolution 8939. Once again, it's co-sponsored by a Republican. She's working across the aisle, and this one is to protect pain-capable unborn children and for other purposes. This is going to stop abortions at a certain point. Yes, a Democrat put this forward. Granted, based on what Tulsi Gabbard's been doing and what she's actually been doing throughout her entire stay in Congress hasn't been terribly democratic. And this is just literally shitting on one of the biggest pillars that the Democrats have been putting forward. I'm going to love to see the different kind of slander that's going to be taken against her, because she, at the end of the day, still is a woman of color, so they're going to have a real tough time. I don't know, they'll probably just say that she's internalizing her misogyny, but we don't have a lot of information on the House page here, other than Jeff Duncan is the Republican who signed on from South Carolina. It's been introduced to the House, and it's been referred to the House Committee on the Judiciary. So when they're done dealing with what Eric Swalwell is up to, they'll be able to take a look at this presumptively. Now, it's been in their hands since the 10th, and I just heard about it here this morning, and thought it was mighty interesting that a Democrat would actually put this forward, because, I don't know, my opinion on this matter has changed quite a few times, okay? I know you guys are just thinking, oh, Don, you don't have any standing on this one. You're a straight white male. What are you talking about abortions for? Well, I have an opinion on murder, and I haven't done that to anybody yet, and I think, you know what, I've been negotiable on this one. There are, of course, those fucking minuscule opportunities where abortion would be necessary, obviously. Oh, what if a woman gets raped by her uncle and Okay, yeah, all of those hyperbolic things, yes, of course, duh. You don't want to bring some fucking retarded kid into the world. I understand that, that's fine. And if you want to hoover out a mistake from a couple weeks ago, that's totally up to you. I used to during my time in college, when of course you have the worst ideas implemented into your head and you start to potentially think of some of those things as being good ideas. Yeah, all the way up until birth, sure, that would have been fine. But then I started to realize that, okay, sustainability starts to happen within the first trimester, and you'd just like to see that kind of stuff stop anywhere after that, okay? Because once the child could be sustainable outside of the womb, then you get into the very easy determination stage where, okay, if this kid could live and thrive in an incubator or whatever the proper terminology is, I'm not a doctor, obviously. But once it reaches that point, can we declaratively say that that is a living being? I kind of think so. And apparently that's what a Democrat has to say as well. We had to switch it up a little bit because that previous article wanted me to pay to fucking read on it. I had it opened up the first time and didn't want my money, but yeah, we'll just go to the National Review because they're a pretty good outlet as well. Last week, Hawaii Representative Tulsi Gabbard introduced not one but two substantial pieces of pro-life legislation. Oh, okay, fair enough. I was going to say 3, maybe even 4. But speaking on pro-life and gender issues, definitely. One measure from the Democratic Congresswoman is intended to protect pain-capable unborn children. The legislation text is not yet available, but it is likely along the lines of similar legislation introduced in the past, which prohibits most abortions after 20 weeks gestation, based on research suggesting that unborn children can feel pain at that stage of pregnancy. I think that's fair. I'd like to keep it, within a month or two, because outside of that, I think it's more or less just used as a bargaining tool, and you kind of have your mind made up if you want to bring that child into the world at this point. I don't necessarily always think the worst in people, but yeah, becomes a tool of spite at that point. The second piece of legislation would ensure a healthcare practitioner exercises the proper degree of care in the case that a child who survives an abortion or attempted abortion. Oh, right, yes, that was also brought up as well, and that was, a couple of weeks ago. Tulsi's been fucking busy, to be completely honest, and I definitely That one, I don't quite know. Let's read through the rest of this. The bill text also has yet to be made public, but it also certainly follow along forms of born alive legislation. For the past 2 years, the Senate has held a vote on Senator Ben Sassy's Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, which requires physicians to treat newborns who survive an abortion in the same way that they treat a newborn delivered at the same gestational age. If the child who is born is not severely damaged and wouldn't require significant surgery or would have a very reduced quality of life in the future once they survive that horrific birth, I think that it's fair that you should be trying to work on any sort of living human being who is brought into this world to the best of your abilities. So I definitely would have to side on the side of that. But we don't have the text for that, so I'm not too sure if that's what it is, but that sounds like something that it would probably be. I don't know, I just don't think that you should be running around killing kids. It's like, right now, as bad as COVID is right now and how it's affecting, I'll use some leftist talking points right now, it's affecting black and brown communities at a higher rate than anything else, but it will not be the number one killer of 2020. You know, it will be the number one killer of black and brown people in 2020? Planned Parenthood. Adding insult to injury, Gabbard is also sponsoring a measure that would define sex as determined on the basis of biological sex as determined at birth by a physician. That was, yes, the Title IX provision that we covered here less than a week ago. As a pro-life group, Democrats for Life has pointed out, Gabbard has voted against pain-capable abortion restrictions 3 times during her congressional tenure. However, during the Democratic presidential primary, Gabbard was the only candidate to espouse the support for any restrictions on abortion. Yeah, it was almost like she was playing towards the center in order to win the nomination, but since that was never never allowed to be happening, yeah, she just decided, shit, I got nothing to lose and I'm not seeking re-election, so fuck it, putting everything on the table. In an interview with big-brained Dave Rubin, I like Dave Rubin. He's a good interviewer, but I just don't think that he's all that smart. Gabbard said she views abortion in a libertarian way, but believes it should not be permitted during the last 3 months of pregnancy unless the mother was in severe risk. It's where we part company, I think, the first trimester, but whatever. Listen, I have strong opinions on abortion. I just don't care that much. On my hierarchy of things that I care about when it comes to the government, I don't think it would make my top 5. Might make my top 10. I'd really have to think about it. I think the 3rd trimester, unless a woman's life is severe health consequence is at risk, there shouldn't be an abortion in the 3rd trimester. Completely reasonable position to take. Perhaps Gabbard has reflected on abortion and slowly changed her mind on the matter. I know pretty much everybody who started out as, it's a woman's right, we shouldn't have any sort of opinion or put in any sort of thought to that because it doesn't affect me. Once you start to think about it, and once you start to learn that different parts of the body start to develop at different points during a pregnancy, then you start to understand that, yeah, it's probably a little bit inhumane to, deliver the baby, make sure the baby's okay and safe, and we can make a decision on it later. Ralph Northam in fucking Virginia, the creep. Yeah, just in case you guys had to wonder, afterlife abortions are probably not okay. Just gonna throw that out there. I guess that's the kind of things you can think of when you have too much shoe polish on your face for long enough. Fucking bad ideas just start to seep in. But yeah, I'd await for the text for those 2 bills to be put forward. We'll definitely be looking at them from then. But the next piece of legislation, this one could definitely ruffle some feathers, not by the nicest of people who definitely seek to have more power. Once again, sponsored by a Republican, Mr. Thomas Massie out of the great state of Kentucky. Him and Tulsi look to repeal the government surveillance laws which threaten civil liberties, more specifically the Patriot Act. Yeah, that was something that Joe Biden, in fact, voted for. So, during the great power consolidation post 9/11. Let's get into the meat of it. The Protect Our Civil Liberties Act is what the bill is called. This is a bipartisan bill that would repeal the USA Patriot Act and amend the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Oh, by God, she's going after big tech and she's going after FISA. Jesus. She never wants to get back on that blue donkey. to remove dangerous provisions that undermine American civil liberties. The Constitution of the United States guarantees fundamental rights and freedoms for every American, including the right to privacy and protect against illegal search and seizure without probable cause. Unfortunately, the so-called Patriot and FISA Amendments Act allow the intelligence community to conduct mass surveillance on Americans, collecting information about phone calls and our emails. Thank you, Edward Snowden. And by the way, pardon Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. Our legislation will repeal these laws and require Congress to strike the right balance between serving our nation's security interest and protecting our civil liberties and Fourth Amendment rights. Yes, require a warrant in order to tap people's phone lines. Obama would have done well to adhere to that doctrine during the 2016 transition. The Patriot Act contains many provisions that violate the Fourth Amendment and have led to a dramatic expansion of our domestic surveillance state, said Representative Thomas Massie. Our founding fathers have fought and died to stop the kind of warrantless spying and searches that the Patriot Act and the FISA Amendments Act authorize. It is long past time to repeal the Patriot Act and reassert the constitutional rights of the Americans. Yes, exactly. Last time I checked, 9/11 was 19 years ago. I am honored to co-sponsor Congresswoman Gabbard's bill and look forward to working with her on this issue. We've covered 4 pieces of legislation. They've both been across the aisle. Nobody else wants to fucking do this stuff. It's going to be a dark-ass 4 years, I tell you. House Resolution 8970, the Protect Our Civil Liberties Act, a bipartisan bill, would repeal the United States Patriot Act as well as blah, 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 to address dangerous changes made to it in the years following the 9/11 attacks, and which were not addressed by subsequent FISA amendments made by Congress. Ooh, taking shots at your party. The USA Patriot Act, along with changes to FISA, have been used to undermine American civil liberties, particularly the Fourth Amendment protections. The Protect Our Civil Liberties Act would repeal the Patriot Act, delicious, which contains provisions allowing for mass telephone metadata collection. Repeal the FISA Amendments Act, which contains provisions allowing mass email collection, except for the provisions regarding FISA court reporting and weapons of mass destruction intelligence collection. As long as it stays at that terrorist designation, like if you're under surveillance for being a suspected terrorist, that's what that would allow for. I don't mind that, but you need to have just reason in order to collect the data for individuals, and it should be expanded. Well, we're talking about contraction here. I am talking about expansion, but for emails, no. I want the metadata from all of these public social media firms and online tech to also be left hands off, unless, of course, you're looking for terrorists, murderers, and rapists, but boy can dream. Make retaliation against federal national security whistleblowers illegal. Wow. And provide for the termination of individuals who engage in such retaliation. That's huge. That is huge. Snowden, Assange, Kim.com, even what's-her-face there, Bradley Chelsea Manning. They wouldn't have had to gone into hiding. Ensure that any FISA collection against a U.S. person can only occur with a valid warrant based on probable cause. That's what I've been talking about here before. Retain the ability for government surveillance capabilities to be targeted against a specific non-U.S. person. Oh, nice. Regardless of the type of communications, methods, or devices being used by the subject of this surveillance. Exactly. If they're going to be a threat to national security, a credible threat to national security, by the way, then yes, everything should be on the table. I'm totally fine with that. Retain provisions in current law dealing with the acquisition of intelligence information involving weapons of mass destruction from entities not composed primarily of United States persons. Okay, fine. Prohibit government-mandated backdoors in electronic devices or software that allows governments to bypass encryption or other privacy technology built into said hardware and or software. And that's another thing that Edward Snowden pointed out, that there are always these backdoors available. And even Tim Cook of Apple has acknowledged that these backdoors exist in the Apple devices. So, yeah. Just because they exist doesn't mean that the government should have access to them. Increase the terms of judges on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court from 7 to 10 years and allow their reappointment. I don't know about that. I'm always about term limits, but I'm not too terribly sure about expanding them. We'll have to reassess point 8 here. mandate that the FISC, the surveillance court, utilize technologically competent technical and legal experts, yes, to help determine the veracity of government claims about privacy, minimization, and collection capabilities employed by the U.S. government in FISA applications. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. That takes all of the burden off the government, and it brings in a potentially nonpartisan third party. Use the hypotheticals because nobody's been compromised yet, and make sure that there is something credible there and that there's something credible to be gained if they were to put somebody under the surveillance and collect their data. I like it. Mandate that the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, worst party member in Final Fantasy VI, regularly monitor such domestic surveillance programs for compliance in the law, including responding to members' requests for investigations and whistleblower complaints or of wrongdoing. Don't see anything wrong with that. Explicitly ban the use of Executive Order 12333 as a way of conducting surveillance on U.S. persons or mass collection information. I got the text for Executive Order 1233 because I wasn't terribly sure what the hell it was, but here are the goals of it. The United States intelligence efforts shall provide the President and the National Security Council with the necessary information on which to base decisions concerning the conduct and development of foreign defense and economic policy and the protection of the United States national interest or foreign security threats. Nice vague jargon. All department and agencies shall cooperate fully to fulfill this goal. So it's a consolidation of power in order to surveil individuals, I think. Maximum emphasis should be given to fostering analytical competition among appropriate elements of the intelligence community, all means consistent with applicable United States law and this order, and with full consideration of the rights of the United States person shall be used to develop intelligence information for the President and the National Security Council. This is exactly what that is. A balanced approach between technical collection efforts and other means should be maintained and encouraged. Special emphasis should be given to detecting and countering espionage and other threats to be scared so we can take your data, and activities directed by foreign intelligence services against the United States government or United States corporations, establishments, or persons. Interesting. So any place that the United States might have interest in, they can enact this executive order. To the greatest extent possible, consistent with applicable United States law and this order, and the full consideration of the rights of the United States persons, all agencies and departments should seek to ensure full and free exchange of information, or otherwise we will tell you that you're under persecution if you don't comply, of information of this order to derive maximum benefit for the United States intelligence effort. Okay, yeah, so this is just full wholesale data harvesting, but when somebody is compromised or looking to compromise a certain institution. It's kind of what I thought it was, but I'm glad we got the background on it. And yeah, just seeks to put a leash on that executive order. And the only way that you can repeal an executive order is through the legislation in the House, or another president, or even that same president can override a executive order. Ooh, and this is what we'll close on. This past October, she introduced 2 bipartisan resolutions. This is Tulsi Gabbard again, House Resolutions 1162 with Matt Gaetz. Good man. Anything that he does is usually very, very high-quality shitposty and rather Trump Republican, if you understand that. And House Resolution 1175 with Thomas Massie once again, and House Resolution 1162 called on the federal government to drop all charges against Edward Snowden, and 1175 defended the freedom of the press and called on the federal government to drop all charges against Julian Assange. And I am optimistic both of those people will be pardoned by the end of the first term of President Trump. I'm optimistic, because Edward Snowden is a good man and Julian Assange is fucking batshit crazy as he became, having to live in that little room in the embassy and I forget where, but yeah, they're both vitally important to exposing the corruption of the deep state, and would have been very important in leaking the Hunter Biden email to a much Hunter Biden laptop, rather. The emails were just a small part of that, to a much larger audience and more effectively in the case of Julian Assange. And Edward Snowden would have been a great case and a great little symbol that Trump is serious about big tech censorship and the deep state's overreach, as he's kind of feeling right now. So hopefully those two things can happen, and hopefully these, I guess, 3 bills at this point, the text comes out on the first two, and this one goes through something. It looks like it's already passed through, and it's gone to a couple of committees, so that's one hell of a good thing. And I don't expect these to pass, because anytime that somebody's asking for the government to return power to the people, they are normally just smacked back down to earth. But I love the direction of this, and hopefully there are more Democrats like this in the future. Oh, sorry, I almost got through that statement. But yeah, I just hope that there's more politicians that are more open to freedom in the future. Anyways, guys, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.